Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Warriors of Chaos led by KHOLEK Suneater, so definitely going to be a good time for all. And I'm going to be facing off against the Clan Angren, so definitely looking for some Ghost Lords over there. So thankfully, I do have these aspiring champions that deal pretty high magic damage, so I should be okay, but we will find out, guys. So as far as my army composition goes, I decided to switch it up a little bit with all my previous Chaos games, and honestly I think the more competitive build is kind of the Manticore builds. Manticores are just so good. They do cause terror, they have really good combat stats for how much you're paying, and they're just a very well-rounded unit. But personally, I wanted to try something a little bit different and have some fun. So in my front line, I just have a ton of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. So these guys are pretty good against the Dwarves. They have 38 weapon strength and pretty good stats elsewhere. I mean, their melee defense, when buffed, as you can see, it has a slight augmentation, I think, due to the leadership nearby, is up to 36, which isn't bad at all. Then I also have a back line of aspiring champions here, and dwarves do have that magic resist against their damage, but against Clan Angren, these guys are essential, because if they spam ethereal lords and bring, the 3 ghost lords, it's going to be pretty hard to deal with them if you don't have aspiring champions. So on top of that, you also want to bring the Lore of Fire against Clan Angren. Getting the Flaming Sword of Rune does imbue your infantry with magic damage and flame damage, which synergizes quite well with Kindle Flame, so very, very important to bring that. In the backline, I also decided to mix it up a little bit and bring some Chosen with great weapons. These guys are just absolute gangsters, and anytime I can find a reason to bring Chosen, they're definitely, in my opinion, one of the coolest units in the game, but they're so darn expensive, and they really do get punished by, focus fire from missile units and cannons and those type of things, so very circumstantial use of them, but they're a very cool unit, so I'm looking forward to using them. And look at their stats: 46 weapon strength with 46 melee attack and 44 melee defense with 120 armor, so very, very tough unit. I also have KHOLEK Suneater, of course, and the Lord of the Storm, the Thunder ability he has, is really strong, and I hope you guys get to see it, or I hope I actually showed it to you guys this game, but it was really, really useful. I also have 2 groups of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes because, of course, gyrocopters are becoming more and more popular, and they're also a huge threat to KHOLEK because they do have that anti-large bonus, so if they just chase KHOLEK around, that's going to be a lot of work for me to kind of keep him alive. So thankfully, I did bring these, and they're pretty good against the gyrocopters. A one-on-one, it's not the best matchup. The gyrocopters can do pretty well, especially if they bomb effectively, but it's better to have them and be able to put that pressure. And at the very least, even if they don't bring gyrocopters, these guys have armor-piercing missiles and do have 30 missile strength, or missile damage. So parking them behind a group of heavily armored dwarves and just having them throw throwing axes while they sit there, it's not the worst situation in the world. So that's pretty much it for my army. I didn't bring any cav, just kind of a heavy infantry army with KHOLEK, of course, with his 80 move speed, will hopefully be quick enough and be able to maneuver around. So my opponent, he has 2 miners with blasting charges here. He actually has some iron breakers, which is pretty cool, and some dwarf warriors here, warriors of Dragonfire Pass, who are very, very strong. And it looks like he also has some rangers here. He has King Louen Ironhammer with the potions. So this guy is a linebacker. He is very hard to kill. Do not be deceived by his 1800 HP. He is hard to kill. And then he also has a Rune Lord back here and a Runesmith here, so I'm definitely going to be getting some Rune and Wrath and Rune. And the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune is so strong. If my opponent is, on top of things and use it on my Chosen, it's going to really punish them. So I definitely am hoping he doesn't do that. And he has 2 groups of Rangers here. They don't have the armor piercing, but they have a pretty good arc. They do have stock, so I don't see them yet. And if they're focus firing on KHOLEK, they're going to do okay damage considering he has very low armor. So in the wings here, he also has the Dragonback Slayer, so he's keeping them hidden. And I think that's pretty much it, aside from his 2 gyrocopters with Brimstone. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, guys. So my forces, I'm just advancing through the valley. If you were in a tournament or something and you wanted to be really competitive on this particular map, I might advise advancing up through the tree line here, just in case they have cannons or other, missile fire like that, especially against the dwarves. But thankfully he didn't have any, so I felt relatively comfortable just marching up the pipe, which, gets the battle going a little bit faster and is less annoying for both my opponent and myself. So he is opening fire here. These guys are pretty heavily armored, these Chaos Warriors. You can see they're taking a bit of HP damage, but they do have 100 armor, so the lack of armor piercing on those missiles will help, but they aren't shielded. So those missiles will still get in there, and they're probably going to get a few HP. Well, let's see if they actually haven't gotten any model kills yet, and they've only done, maybe 4 or 5% HP damage, so pretty happy about that exchange. But my big issue is KHOLEK, and you can see he's already kind of pressuring me on the wings with the gyrocopter, trying to find an opening, and I'm having to screen him with these Marauder Horsemen here, because KHOLEK is definitely not happy about this situation, and he's going to be even less happy when he finds out the Dragonback Slayers are back here. But my opponent's throwing the blasting charges in here, and is doing pretty good. You can see the Iron Breakers are knocking down my troops, and it's definitely good because it kind of falters your ranks, and you can see only a few of these guys are going to charge in. He actually pulls back the miners, which is pretty smart because the miners don't want to be in that head-to-head, and they're better of a unit to supplement your main line with. But I do use the Lord of the Storm back here and actually do a bit of damage. Look how much damage it did to those Iron Breakers. That's huge. So Lord of the Storm, definitely a very underrated ability. So the Chaos troops are kind of staggering in. Their formation's being broken by those blasting charges, but they should be in pretty good shape. So what I decided to do is consolidate my forces more. Instead of fighting out in this wide formation, I wanted to kind of collapse on the middle here and just try and break through with brute force and the flaming sword of rune. And you can see he does use the master rune of wrath and rune, but thankfully he did use it on some chaos warriors, so it's not as devastating. So you can see the aspiring champions are mixed in, and though they're not going to pierce the armor of the dwarves, they still have 46 weapon strength if I'm not mistaken, and they do have a little bit of splash damage, so having them mixed in and having that encouragement is really nice. So in the front line you can see the Chosen are here, and the Chosen are just going to absolutely destroy these miners and dwarf warriors, especially with the lure of fire. So but my opponent definitely not backing down. He's using the lure of not the lure of runes, it'd be kind of cool, but he's using the rune of wrath and rune, and he's very effective at cycling it every chance it's up, so very well played on my opponent's part. You can see KHOLEK, it was actually focus fired. He's taking some brimstone fire here. He's having to scurry about, unfortunately, but I do have the Marauder Horsemen starting to throw and get some combat, but unfortunately the Dragonback Slayers came out of hiding and were able to jump them when I wasn't paying attention, so very well played there. KHOLEK gets in here, and I found kind of a weak pocket, and I wanted to clip the wings of his formation, so then I can collapse in with everything and get that rear charge. And also this cross angle here, I can do good work on these guys and then just cycle right back to these guys over here. So I didn't want to run through the main formation where he had his heroic units and King Louen, who would have been able to hurt KHOLEK a little bit. I figured this would be the better path. So again, KHOLEK's very good at just trampling through formations. He does not care. So he gets in here and just is going to start cracking Ranger skulls. And then he also is going to use Lord of the Storm here. And just look at the damage this does. It's incredible how powerful that ability is. A lot of people don't even think about it, or it's never a point of discussion, but it's really, really good. So he's able to get in here, do good damage to this group of Rangers, and then he's just going to cycle back and forth between these two groups. But unfortunately, I am taking that Brimstone Fire, which is tough. But my Marauder Horsemen were able to escape the clutches of these Dragonback Slayers here, who are definitely very, very scary, to say the least. Man, dude, they look cool. But I'm kind of just riding circles around them right now and trying to escape, but still, the whole time I have to run from these guys, I can't be sitting and throwing axes. So his Brimstone guns with their anti-large bonus against cav, even though it's not like as effective as the other gyrocopters might be, the anti-large bonus is still, allowing them to get a lot of kills. But every moment these are focusing my cav over here, they're not focusing KHOLEK, which is huge. But unfortunately, you can see the Ironbreakers turn around and actually start bombing KHOLEK with all their blasting charges here. KHOLEK's still in pretty decent shape. He's at about half health, so. But at this point, my opponent starts to focus some of his resources on him, so I decide to run KHOLEK off into the trees to recover for a moment. As far as the main line goes, my opponent actually flanks me with the Dragonback Slayers, and they have 49 weapon strength, so nothing to sneeze at, but they shouldn't fare terribly well against these aspiring champions here, who hit hard, and these guys do have low armor, so they should be okay. And you can see the throwing axes are coming in the back of those guys, so very funny there. But yeah, they're still getting through, doing a bit of damage, and my opponent did use the Rune of Wrath and Rune on these Chosen, so he's starting to focus them with the Rune of Wrath and Rune. He hadn't been earlier, but now he is, so definitely a very, very tough situation. You can see those Ironbreakers are still throwing charges into my forces, so right now I'm kind of getting sandwiched here. You can see the Dwarves were able to do pretty well over here with these Chaos Warriors, and those Ironbreakers with the Rune of Wrath and Rune were able to kind of crack and clip my wing on that side, so very, very well played there, but still I have this massive contingent of Chosen and very elite infantry here in the middle, so things are going well. I still have 58 models, but unfortunately, leadership is relatively low across some of my troops. They're actually steady, which isn't good. And he does have King Louen, and something I noticed throughout the battle is the King Louen was terrifying my low-tier Chaos Warriors. They were running, and I was having to re-engage them, and when they ran, he would fill in the pockets with his troops, so definitely very well played. And also, he has a very good position for this Rune Lord here, where he's kind of just sitting back here and is able to buff and isn't really threatened himself, so very, very well played there. And Rune Lord is, he's no pushover. He still has, close to 300 weapon strength himself, so he should do pretty well. The Chosen are putting up a really good fight, and you can see over here we'll take an overhead. I was able to win this side heavily, and you can see KHOLEK's kind of doing laps and just dropping lightning on the range units. I'm trying to eliminate all the range units, so then I can comfortably just sit in combat with him and do as I please, essentially, because any moment where there's range units shooting at him, it's really gonna wear at him, and he's such a big target. Definitely very easy for these Rangers to hit their mark with KHOLEK. So he does terrify and break those guys. So they are routing now, which is pretty good. Only 14 models left. So now he's gonna sweep in here and do pretty good damage. But still, my opponent, he was very, very good at microing these gyrocopters with brimstone guns. He was just flying around and avoiding my Marauder Horsemen and routing them at the same time. And he actually had just done a bombing run on these guys and did pretty well. But KHOLEK's able to get in there and start laying the smackdown on some of these dwarves on the periphery, but I actually didn't notice there was a few Dragonback Slayers here who are still doing pretty good, but KHOLEK is definitely a monster when he makes that contact. With that 520 weapon strength, especially if you buff him with the Flaming Sword of Rune, it's scary how hard he hits. So you can see the Rune Lord's in good health. He's using the Master Rune of Oath and Steel, so 30 armor is pretty big, but thankfully all my troops have the armor piercing. Right now I was trying to get my aspiring champions onto King Louen here, and you can see it's actually working out. Their magic damage is starting to wear him down a little bit. He's still a linebacker though, I'm telling you, he's so tough, and his ability to carry a potion is very, 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 very powerful, to say the least. So this Chaos Sorcerer, unfortunately, he got a little too close, and King Louen was laying the smackdown, but thankfully KHOLEK's able to come over here and help out a little bit. But those darn Rangers are back. They're sitting over here in the trees. They're poking away at KHOLEK. And then also those gyrocopters they're still shooting at them, so very, very tough. But thankfully, if you guys take a look, they're almost out of ammo. So they only have like a few volleys left. So they're most likely just going to dive bomb KHOLEK and, and go after him in that respect. But it won't work out terribly well for them, because KHOLEK, with his 520 armor piercing damage, will definitely put these guys in a trash can. So KHOLEK was taking a lot of damage, and I knew everything I had was steady and shaken. So if KHOLEK had, gotten low and routed off himself, that kind of leadership trigger it would have caused on the rest of my troops was devastating. So I decided to hide him for just a minute and then wait for the Lord of the Storm and come back in. So you can see the Chosen are in here, but the Dwarf, the Ironbreakers, and their leadership here is holding up really well. Even though they don't have a ton of armor piercing, he's kind of compensating for his lack of armor piercing by spamming the runes and then having King Louen and those other troops in there. And the miners, when buffed by the runesmith, aren't terrible. So you can see he actually terrifies a few of my units, and it causes a mass rout. So I was extremely shocked, because I still had so much. Look at that blob. And most of his forces are so tattered. I couldn't believe it. So very, very well played on my opponent's part. They're all running into the trees now, but thankfully KHOLEK's over here. He's waiting. He's got his hammer up for Harambe, and he's going to support him, and he gets a nice Lord of the Storm on that pocket of dwarf troops left. But look how beat up the dwarfs are. If I could just simply turn these guys around and start fighting, I think I could just end it. But that Terrify mechanic's really strong, and when used correctly, it can, cause a mass rout, essentially, because a few troops will start running, the other guys will have their flanks exposed, other things like that. So very, very bad. And you can see these Chosen are broken too, and there's still 31 of them. That's so much left. But he does land these gyrocopters, and KHOLEK is not going to have this. He's just going to smash them with his Star Crusher there. I don't actually have the Star Crusher, but he does, but it's not an activatable item on him. So he's able to destroy these gyrocopters, and they were out of ammo anyway. So I think my opponent was like trying to do a little bit of damage to break KHOLEK, but thankfully some of these Chaos Warriors do come back from rout with their Lord nearby. And this Runesmith, he does not want to be fighting, and King Louen gets battered by KHOLEK. KHOLEK is undoubtedly one of the strongest. He probably is the strongest duelist. I don't know who can beat him straight up at a one-on-one. He's just such a monster. But again, that terror mechanic is so strong, and you can see those guys are terrified. 32 Chaos Warriors running because of that. So then that leads, my other troops that are still left fighting, they get, outnumbered, and very, very well played. And I think that's a good way to use Clan Anger. And a lot of people spam those Ethereal Lords, but it seems wise to just bring one, because people will overcompensate, for them and plan for them, and bring Azog and just to kill them, and it can backfire for sure. But thankfully, the Inspiring Champions here, they do provide encouragement. So once my troops are able to stabilize in the forest here, I'm able to turn around and start fighting. You can see a few of the dwarves are coming in here, and it's a very close battle. KHOLEK here is kind of working on King Louen, and thankfully these Aspiring Champions are able to get on him and start doing a little bit of damage. He did use that potion and heal to full, so definitely a lot of drama there. But these troops are coming back. Some Chaos Warriors are coming back. KHOLEK is being chased, so I was kind of running laps right now, but I realized it was time to just get in there and give the Rune Lord the dirty. And you can see, I'm not sure what he swung at there. It didn't look like there was any targets, but the Lord of the Storm goes down here. It's going to do a nice bit of damage to this pocket of dwarves here, and just every little thing counts right now. This battle is so close, and those 31 Chosen that ran off the other direction, thankfully they're able to come back, and they're going to make all the difference right now. And I had just enough for the Cascading Fire Cloak. So the dwarves, I think they may have met the end of their times here. And KHOLEK here is able to isolate the Rune Lord over here, who over pursued just a little bit. And you can see just that one hit just sends him down to the Shaken. And now, yeah, he just gets crushed. KHOLEK is just, when the Rune Lord, again, is not equipped to deal with him. These Ironbreakers, they're just absolute troopers. They've been fighting this entire time. We're very effective with those satchel charges. Pretty much all my opponent has left is a few, I think King Louen. And these Marauder Horsemen are able to kind of chase around and make sure those Rangers couldn't come back, And that's another great use of bringing at least one group of these is, for fleeing units in the long game, they're pretty good at dealing with them. So anyways, let's go ahead and look at this battle as it comes to an end. But you can see right now it's mainly just King Louen fighting the Aspiring Champs and just putting him down. So very, very well played to my opponent. It was a fun battle. Both of us brought relatively, uncommon builds, and it made for a great matchup. So, maybe having, a group of Longbeards or, with great weapons might have made a difference for him. I think he didn't have quite that much armor piercing, but he was definitely going for that kind of turtle and rune and wrath and rune build, which I've been seeing a lot of lately, actually. So essentially, you just bring heavily armored Ironbreakers and units with high melee defense, as opposed to the more aggressive Longbeards with great weapons. You just kind of sit there and wear your opponent down through attrition with the rune and wrath and rune, and then use gyrocopter support, who do have armor piercing, to supplement you in that way. So very interesting, very well played on my opponent's part. So quick breakdown, you can see the Chosen were just monsters. Look at that, 166 kills against the Dwarves is really good. They were in the center fighting heavy-duty infantry. The rest of the guys did as expected, and of course, Aspiring Champions don't always rack up a lot of kills, but they did their part. KHOLEK did quite well, and the Marauder Horsemen did okay, but my opponent definitely, I think, outplayed me with the gyrocopters. So Very well played to my opponent, Ocam. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder. And thanks again for watching this Chaos Cast, guys. Have an excellent night, and take care.